What is up, guys? Welcome to week 29 of the All In podcast with Bad Beat Bryce and Ryan the Rock. How are you doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing super good, Bryce. Very, very, very good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Had a week off the podcast, got a little refreshed, but yeah, good to be back, man.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been on a pretty bad downswing. October was a rough month. The variance was not in my favor, and finally booked a significant couple $100 win the other night, and just very big confidence booster. Big shout out to Jonathan Little. I did one of his little courses on being aggressive in the blinds and blind v blind situations, and one of those is going to come up in our hand histories later. It's an interesting spot where if you weren't thinking at the time and you were just playing super snug, you might just fold hands like this. So
and poker coaching is now offering 5 days free, so make sure to utilize that. It's awesome. I'm sure you guys will probably end up buying the membership when you see how great it is. I know Ryan uses it more than I do, but
I love it.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
Right.
We have another announcement. We mentioned on our last podcast that we have some merch out, but Ryan, do you want to show off some of your stuff?
Boom.
So yeah, this is
podcast sweater.
First edition. We've even got some face masks, but yeah, make sure to check those out. But yeah, so our topic today, before we get into our guest, again, we're talking a little bit about Doug Polk and Jenny Legranu. Do you want to talk about it a little, Ryan?
Yeah, so the real backstory to this came on a Poker News article that I read this morning, where good old Bill Perkins went out, and I don't want to read his tweet directly, but basically they were talking about data mining in the heads-up match, where they agreed before that in some online, if you see a lot of streamers out there, they'll have what's called a HUD or a heads-up display, where it'll show below each person that's playing with them what their VPIP is, what their 3-bet percentage is. It can get so granular. It can get down to what percentage they call flop bets, turn bets, what's their check raising percentage. And so they didn't obviously want that for this heads up match. They wanted it to be purely about them playing each other. So they didn't allow that. But they do allow you to go in afterwards and review the hands that occurred. You just can't download the hand histories. So
it's also interesting. I read in that article that HUDs are banned in Nevada.
Yeah.
What is your general feeling on HUDs? Obviously, it gives an advantage, and I think it's a disadvantage to rec players, and I think it very much discourages them going online because it's just such a massive edge having those HUDs. And I know PP Poker, you could literally buy a VIP card for $5 a month, and it was very worth it. And they would literally give you the HUD on everyone. While they don't have that on Poker Bros, there are still obviously ways to download and get a HUD. Yeah, what are your general feelings towards them? I know it's a little tangent, but
right. But the problem is with them is that there's no real way to fully vet them online, because to some degree, someone can always have their game up on one screen and have a program on a different one that's just pulling the information from the screen itself. So, there's ways to police them from not allowing them to be literally on the sites, but to some degree, there's no way to stop people from doing it other than to have Nevada make it illegal and try to stop the practice of doing it. And I tend to agree that if it's not something that you could do in the live environment, then I don't think it should be allowed online.
Absolutely. So yeah, in terms of this match, Bill Perkins basically was complaining because he thinks it gives a massive edge to Doug Polk, the fact that he's just doing all this reviewing. I think it's kind of BS, though. I think they should totally be allowed to do it. While I don't think they should have charts up during, I think it's absolutely reasonable to go back and review what hands you played. I think you do that after every session, or you should be doing that after every session. And I think you can be able to talk. There's hand history lounges. Everyone is doing this. I do not think it's unreasonable for them to be able to do this. I don't think they should be using HUDs, but generally just noticing people's tendencies, whether it's someone's 3-betting a lot or someone's defending too loosely. These are things you're doing anyway. Why would you not be able to write those things down? So that's kind of my feeling towards it.
And you know what? The funny part is now Doug and Daniel have both agreed on that. If you look into the rules of it, it does say that, you can't have an automated system do it, but there's nothing to stop you from going back into the hand histories and writing down by hand how many times somebody folded a button and then doing the math yourself.
Absolutely.
So that's not a problem. And he said that's not illegal because he and his coaches, and I'm sure Doug and his coaches, watch the session over again immediately after it ends and review each hand while it's fresh in their minds. So,
absolutely.
I don't understand. I think the real question is why the heck did Bill Perkins do this? doesn't really make sense because both of the players have come out and said, whoa, it wasn't really a controversy. We just had a quick conversation about it. So I don't really understand where Bill Perkins got the idea that like some ill intent was involved.
I don't think he actually seemed that angry. I don't know if this was just him like trolling a little and just wanting to get involved, because he's definitely sent out some strong worded tweets in the past, and he didn't really seem to be that angry. I don't know if he was just kind of throwing some ignition into the fire. I don't know.
And especially considering this match, unlike the Esfandiari Helmuth match, which had a lot of fire before, during, and after. This one had, some Twitter fire before, but has been largely professional business as usual.
Yeah, very civil. I think people were very surprised to see their first live match. They seemed almost friends. It was like, I read something. Wait, were you the person who said it was like they're on their first date, or did I just feel like somewhere else?
I didn't say that.
Oh, yeah. Like it was basically how they were acting. Like it was a little uncomfortable, but like that they liked each other. It was shocking to watch.
It was. It was really entertaining though. It's like, how? Like the two of you were supposed to hate each other.
Exactly. But yeah, definitely comment your guys' thoughts on who you think's going to win this match, who's taking it home. Obviously, everyone seems to think Polk's going to win, but there's a lot of hands left to be played. But without further ado, would you like to introduce our guest for the day?
Absolutely. So this week on the All In podcast, we are featuring yet another fantastic poker content creator. A graduate of Stetson University, go Hatters, with a degree in business management and a minor in entrepreneurship, Kyle Fischl is well equipped to be a YouTube content creator. His channel has well over 8,000 subscribers, where he posts a weekly vlog documenting fun and interesting live hands, mostly from Florida card rooms. Please be sure to check out his YouTube page and subscribe to both of our channels. And to steal his own intro line from the vlogs, hello world, welcome Kyle Fischl to the All In podcast.
Hello world.
What's up, Kyle?
Hi there. Yeah, that is what I say pretty much early. And that's how you know someone watches your vlogs. You sit down at a table and they say, hello, world, right to you. I'm like, thanks for watching.
That's pretty funny. That's awesome, man.
A lot, because you play at this in Florida card rooms and stuff. And, I would imagine people who live in the area and people who are regulars at the card room must know by now that you have a notable YouTube page.
Yes, in the Orange City room, I'm pretty well known. Pretty much everyone knows when I'm there and the days I play. But when I travel like throughout Florida, just someone who I've never seen before or talked to, those come to me and say, hello, world. And I'm like, all right, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Very nice of you.
I got to ask you from the beginning. I saw you do one of those live streams at Best Bet Jacksonville.
Yes.
And it was a couple months ago, and I want to know what's the process to getting onto that stream, because I know it's become really notable because they kind of let smaller stakes players into these games. How did you get yourself onto the stream?
Well, there was a few times when people told me that there was a live stream in Jacksonville and I should look into it, and I never really thought about it until I was just watching it one time, and I'm just like, wow, I could watch this and then come home and watch it again, see how I'm doing. And it like that was kind of the motivator. Like, I have to get on this table so I can watch myself play. And if you watch the vlog I did on it, there was some very obvious live tells to my face, to everything. And I'm just like, wow, do I look that bad when I'm playing at a table? And it's something like that you don't really think about until it's, right in front of your face. And then I actually did it again a few days ago with, ironically, the Poker Traveler, E and Matt from Texas Card House, and the results were not very good for me that day, but it was really fun to play something that's kind of archived in history, and like I could rewatch it, be like, okay, I played with those guys, I saw how they did, players who are very, very good, and you can learn a lot from them. And I think it's just something that everyone should experience. And to get on the table, you just have to email the email address that's on the Best Bet Live page, and if you're traveling and say like you're going to be there in like January, you'd be like, hey, what tables do you have then? Can you put me on the list? And they're really good at helping people out who are coming from out of town. So, just with some prior planning, almost anyone would get on a deep 2-2 game for a $500 buy-in and watch a live stream of themselves, which can be incredibly helpful, like later, whether you win or lose. It can just be such good information, as you said earlier, where you can review your hands and see how you're doing, pick out your own leaks and get better.
Absolutely. So obviously you live in Florida, and we've mentioned Florida card rooms. I used to live in Naples growing up, but haven't checked out the
Oh, okay.
Southwest Florida poker scene much. How would you describe the action? Everything I've heard. I have played in Tampa before, but that was when I was like 18, forever ago. So it's been a while.
The
Uh,
beginning.
the Fort Myers Greyhound track. They actually abandoned it and moved to a room in the same parking lot. It's called the Bonita Springs room now.
Mhm.
And
It
Florida's
looks
just
nice.
yeah, it's very modern, very brand new. It's yeah, everything about it's nice. But the one thing that I would say about Florida is that the player pool is heavily retired people who are just there to have fun, play cards. They're there a lot. Whether they win or lose, they just have a good time with it. And you know, when I was younger, it was my entire dream to become a professional, move to Vegas and play. And when I was 21, went there and I was like, this is horrible. Like everyone was just on headphones. No one would talk to anyone. Just the culture change was so different. I'm like, who would want to do this forever? But in Florida, people just are willing to talk. If they do a crazy bluff, they're more than happy to show it to everyone. They don't keep anything like hidden. Like it's more about just having fun and enjoying yourself than being so just focused on the results as it is in some other places that I've been to.
That's awesome. That definitely sounds like a fun time and a good environment.
Yeah.
Throw some beers
my
back
God.
and
Oh yeah.
play some with them. That's awesome.
That's good.
Yep.
So Bryce and I both started. Well, we started this podcast as really a passion project, and you know that's how a lot of good content creators get started. I'm curious if your minor in entrepreneurship helped draw you into becoming a content creator, and how you made the decision to jump to start putting your content out there.
It was a few things. One, yes, I come in a background of business, and I always knew that in some sense I would have my own business, and maybe my business is creating YouTube content, and that was just kind of something I'd pursue. But additionally, like I like most people who play a lot of poker, they document their results, their graphs, their hours, everything like that. Well, I already had a bunch of pictures. Like I did all that, and I was like, I should be able to see exactly what I was thinking back then, not just like what the result was. Because I'd go through a losing session, I'd look at my graph and be like, oh, I made $2,000 like 5 weeks ago. How did that happen? And I can't even remember. So now if I ever am on a downswing or an upswing, I can just go back in my own YouTube channel and be like, oh, I was a little bit more aggressive with this style of hand. I didn't punt off here like I did this time. Like you can really compare your own style of thinking just from a video log. It doesn't even have to be fully on YouTube. You could just make it for yourself and talk through, because just saying something out loud and being able to justify it and explain everything about your thought process can make you better. Because I talk to people sometimes like, oh, why'd you bet here? Well, because I had a pair of aces. All right, well, you know, what'd you think the other guy had? Like, well, I had a pair of aces. All right, well, you know, when you actually have to justify, go a little bit deeper, that's how you're really going to get better. Well, he could have had this, this, and this, you know. Well, that's why I bet here. He's been super tight. That's why I did it. Not, I had a good hand, I bet. That's a little too basic to get some real, like, long-term success, in my personal opinion.
Absolutely.
Right.
No, you're totally right. I don't know why that makes me think of CJ Ryan. Just like getting someone like, oh, how does he have it here? Like, what do you think? He's calling you on a dry board. Like, what do you think? Yeah.
We've never looked at a range analysis chart.
It's a $20 pot, and he bet 500. I think he has the nuts, but if he's bluffing, he can just have it. It's fine. I'll get the next one.
Right.
It's so funny, some people's thought process. So yeah, I guess next question. I noticed in the description of one of your videos it had a Poker Bros code. Do you play much online, or do you just enjoy the live feel more?
I play micro stakes on Poker Bros pretty much every day, just mainly for fun, because it's not really going to crack me one way or the other, and it lets you really practice a bit. Like, you might be able to play a little bit more confidently if you're still into it always, because I currently have a full-time job, and when you have a full-time job, you can't really study the way you would need to. So to continue to stay sharp, you kind of need an outlet. And as many people have probably said, when you play online, the stakes are much more difficult. Like a winning 2-5 player might get crushed at a 1-2 online game. Like so playing micro stakes is you're playing good people. You're not playing just people who don't care about the money. Like, they know what they're doing too, and I think it's just really good practice because you're never gonna hurt too bad, but you can get a lot of information that way.
Absolutely. Well said. Right. Makes sense.
Yeah. So you often talk about how you like to have fun at the tables, and you're not looking for a super duper competitive atmosphere when you go play. Do you think that post-pandemic poker, people will just have more fun with it than before just because it's back? Or do you think when this all ends, we'll be back to more headphones on, chip shuffling sounds in the poker room?
Well, the first day that poker was reopened in Florida, I was there, and there were people doing like $200 blind bets, calling it off with like 7-5 offsuit. Like, it was beyond belief. Like, the first day, I literally say people just had pent up gambling angst. They just wanted to get out there. Like, they've completely forgotten what it's like to lose. They don't care. They're ready to play, and that's how it was, at least in Florida. And I've heard good things about the action everywhere else where it's opened up. That's just kind of what it was. People were ready to play, and when it first opened up, I kind of had fear of like the health concerns that people would be like not wanting to touch each other really close and, covered up. But everyone who went, when you went to a poker table, you kind of understood what you were getting into. Your goal is to gather other people's chips and bring them in front of you. You're not like, super afraid of stuff. And, you just like poker, you have to analyze your own like risk. If it's risky, it's fine to stay home. That no one would say that's a too cautious thing. But if you want to go play poker, there's people that are willing and able to play with you. Like, they want to get after it.
And you know what, this really leads into my next question too, because one of the things that you talked about, I listened to your the podcast you did with Jamie Kerstatter, and I can't remember who the other host was on Raise Your Edge. Marley, thank you. And one of the things you were talking about was that in pandemic poker, there are some things that aren't so good, like the fact that the card decks are so brand new that actually players are starting to cut their fingers on the cards themselves. Things like that. What would you say are like the biggest strengths of pandemic poker, and like what are the worst parts of pandemic poker?
Well, I will say the biggest strength was that when you have the plexiglass in between people, I literally saw someone throw a $5 chip out saying all in, but through a mask and glass, no one could see it. So the other guy throws out a $5 chip, and he just called an all in. So there's definitely a spot for angle shooting, which I do not recommend or think is good at all. But that is something that I've seen. Ironically, the guy that called had a terrible hand and ended up winning, so it was hysterical.
Wow.
And didn't know he was calling for his whole stack, but he won, so it's good.
Oh my gosh, that is nuts.
I didn't even think about that as a way to angle with the shields there. Wow.
Yeah, no one can hear you. Like if I said 45 and you said call, and the dealer, it's a mask, you can't see what they said. No, I said 85. Like you there's a lot of stuff. That's why you got to be careful. I always, when everyone throws out a $5 chip, no matter what, even before this, I made the dealer tell me what was happening because
absolutely.
I've also seen people balanced with it. Sometimes they bet $5, sometimes they bet all in. I've seen a lot of that stuff too. So.
Some people are shitty, man. I hate English shitty.
Yeah, and it's always good to get dealer confirmation, especially when you just can't hear or really see what each other are doing.
This kind of leads into so this weekend I've played some live, but I'm playing a live tournament. I recently got these like hella noise reducing headphones, and I normally wear AirPods at the table and like listen to music. I'll talk to people, but during a tournament I'll probably be more heads down. But I was thinking about not wearing these just because they're so noise reducing, and I want to be able to hear what's going on at the table. Like I know guys like God, what is that dude's name? Solve for Why.
Berkey?
No. Christian Soto always wears those big headphones. I'm just so curious as to whether they're like noise reducing or not. But yeah, I definitely think I'm gonna go with the AirPods just to be able to hear what's going on, so people also can't angle shoot me.
When I had the noise canceling on, I always had one on and then one off, and then I'd switch it depending on which way the player that I was versing was on. So
yeah,
that's
and
what
I guess if you're in a hand too, you can always just turn it down. No, but they're so noise reducing. It's nice in the sense like you can be in just such in your own zone. I don't know. Haven't decided yet, but yeah, it's a little off topic. But yeah, speaking of tournaments, do you enjoy the tournament scene much, or do you just enjoy the cash game grind?
I was planning on really starting to fire some bullets into the tournaments before the shutdown happened. Like, ironically, I've only played 5 tournaments. Won final table 2, and was like the first person out of the other 2. So I'm either gonna win or lose. You know, it is
That's
what
funny.
it is.
At least you're
Wow.
saving your time. It's not like you're like bubbling. Like you just
Right,
you go deeper, you save your time and play some cash.
And that's literally what it was for me. And I was really planning on trying to do some 1Ks in like the World Series, but I was really not interested in like online tournaments because of kind of what you said earlier. I didn't really want to play on a computer with everyone's real-time assistants right next to her, because that's not really poker in my experience. Like, you might as well just put your solver up and then just like run a sim. There's like no reason to even sit there and click the button yourself. You might as well let the computer do it if you're just going to do whatever it tells you to do. Right. So I was really excited for some live tournaments and really studying and getting into it. But after, the shutdowns, it was, shut down. And once they get live again and there's series, I definitely am interested in getting into it, because I think tournaments are a lot of fun, and it's a real way to make some big results without risking so much. Because you could play like a $200 tournament where first place is $8K. So, ninth place was like $1,100. And you can make some real money with not a whole lot of investment. I know you're going to brick a lot of them before you're going to make that. But, if you are interested in getting into poker, I recommend tournaments, because you could play all day and only lose $200. Like, if you're playing a cash game, you could lose $200 in 30 minutes, rebuy 10 minutes. It can go fast in a cash game, but a tournament, you're always going to have a bit of time and kind of thinking, and then when you're done, unless it's a multiple rebuy that you're really going to throw some bullets in.
There's some soft tournaments. Like, if you're firing the big fofty, people are just getting it in with nut flush draws on the flop. Just like, just send it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I really like what you're saying about how, beginner people, this is a great way to learn. And I think that's been good for me as well, because being able to have like pre-flop charts like Flopzilla, being able to just have Flopzilla up, and so I can just do live range analysis for like what I'm supposed to be doing versus this range based on, I built all these charts out myself. And I think that's super helpful right now, and memorizing it so that there are less and less spots where I have to go look. Now I just kind of have it down, being like, okay, I've looked at the cutoff versus hijack thing 1,000 times. I know what I should be doing with this hand a certain percentage of the time.
And that's kind of what I did. Like, I always reran the math. If I ever knew it was close or I wasn't sure if it was profitable, just write down the numbers, take it home with you, and then put it in the calculator and be like, oh, okay, I should have called. Because it's tough to memorize every situation, but when you just keep going through it, you'll get closer and closer as you move forward till you're pretty optimal.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting thing. So speaking of that, we were talking about how your study habits have changed over the course of the years playing poker. Previously, we had Rampage Poker on here, and one of the things that he said was that he's learned a whole lot from his comment section. So is that something that you've utilized a lot, or? That
is the best way that I've learned. Like, he is exactly right, and it is the biggest truth. And I tell people that, like, genuinely, like, people will comment saying, how do I get better? I say, literally just participate in this comment session, every comment session. Like, if you're watching a live stream, comment with the commentators. Like, just hearing a crowdsourced opinion of what should happen is better than a computer. Because if you're playing a 2-5 game with 7 retired guys and 1 guy that's good at poker, you might have the exact bet size and range down for every single spot, but that one retired guy's just playing 8-5 because it's his favorite hand, and he doesn't know he shouldn't, or that it's wrong, or that he's missing money. Like, so just being studied to the max is not the best way to win at, medium and smaller stakes. Upper stakes, you need to know all that stuff, but really you just need to learn like people and spots and stuff like that, and talk it out and be like, well, this guy looked really weak, but he wasn't. He was faking it. Well, every time I see a guy add a chip, put one more on top, think about it, put it back in a stack, and then go all in, he's always bluffing there. Like, or he always has it. Like, people who just have been there for so long and seen all the moves, all the angles, all everything, they're the ones that are going to give you the best answer. And the comment section's good because, like, in my videos, I'll ask sometimes, like, what's best here? I'm not certain. And sometimes I'll get 100% one way or the other. And then sometimes it's 50-50 and there's really a debate about it. So in those spots, I think you actually learn the most because there's kind of not a right answer. Should I fold? Should I call? And both people are kind of back and forth versus 100% call. You were wrong. Like, those ones feel a little bit worse. But you can learn from that.
I never really thought about a YouTube comment section as like a live hand history lounge, but like that's effectively what it's become for you.
Yeah, because everyone will comment on their own opinion, whether and their opinion matters. Like, these are people who play poker. It's not a random person who's just watching. Like, they're watching because they're kind of good at poker. They're working to get up. Maybe they're a 1-2 regular. Maybe they're a 2-5. Maybe they're a 5-10 regular who just thinks you're funny, and they're saying, hey, no, this is wrong. This is what should happen. I've had people who comment who say they're statisticians and wrote out all the formulas of like what the appropriate things are.
That's amazing.
Wow.
And I didn't ask for that kind of feedback, but when I got it, was I thankful? Yes, I read all of it. I read it 3 times. I responded to them. And that's the kind of stuff that you're not going to get like anywhere else, just on a computer by yourself. You're never going to get something like that. So so yes, the comment section, participate in everyone's if you want to get better.
Yeah, makes sense. Well said.
Advice.
So I know you mentioned you had a full-time job, but roughly how many hours are you putting in both playing as well as studying, let's say a month? It seems like you put in some decent volume.
I'd say I put at least 8 hours a week in just the video creation, sometimes 10 or 12, depending on how many jokes I put in there. Jokes are time-consuming.
Or the little movie clips.
Yep. And then I play probably 8 to 10 hours every weekend, just because, like, it's an hour drive to the room where I'm from. So if I go there, if I punt off in 3 hours, I'm not driving home. I'm gonna just ride it out and get my money's worth for the gas. But so with a full-time job, it's been at least 20 hours a week, really engaged, because it's not just video editing and studying. It's like we said a second ago, we comment in the sections, we read other people's stuff, we watch other people's content, so we learn what they're saying. Like, everyone has a different opinion, and honestly, geographically, the games are super different. Because early on in my vlog, before I had live hand footage, I would say like, hey, this guy bet $300 and he had 7 high when I called, and they're like, no effing way, that didn't happen. And then it took a while for people to literally comment saying like, hey, I've been to Texas, I've been to Florida. No, it's just like that. And then you get the live footage and they're like, wow, that's insane. How did that even happen? So, yeah. So even geographically, it can help you from the comments. Like, yo, I'm from LA. This is how we play over here. This is styles that work. Like, it's crazy how even that has a massive difference in how, poker's played.
Wow.
Makes sense.
I can't wait to experience non-New England poker.
New
England poker is great, but I can't wait to go.
Excited for our Vegas trip, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do the best bet thing too. I think going on a live stream
Absolutely.
is super duper fun.
Let's do
best bet. Highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Let them know. For
sure.
Because we can reach out in advance and then just set it up. I mean, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, be like, what's your schedule? I'll be here this day. I want to play on it. I'll comment. You can commentate the day before, maybe, if you really ask. Like, they'll help you with that too.
That's awesome.
Like, hey, check out our poker podcast. We can definitely commentate. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite questions, go-tos that I've had is just, what is the craziest casino story that you have? We don't really want to hear like bad beat stories, but we've heard some crazy stories. Does one come to mind?
Card rooms. Come on, there's got to be something crazy that's happened.
Craziest. I've had a few interesting things happen. I wouldn't say they're crazy, but I saw a guy one time. It's kind of a bad beat story, but he put all his money in 2K against 2 other people. It was ace high flush draw into 2 different sets, and when the flush came in, he was like eating. He laughed so hard, just food went all over the table. And I'm just like, man, like, I'm surprised no one has really, let that slide.
Did it hold? Did they boat up on the river?
No, he won. He was laughing in their faces. And I'm like,
what an asshole.
And man, food all over the table. Oh,
and then the one other thing that was really crazy was I was at a table one time, and a guy, he's just like all in, puts his chips out, and the dude throws one chip and says call, and he was totally bluffing, so he's
just stuck him in his pockets and just dipped. He's just out of there.
Yep, just walked away. And yeah,
Did
security
someone
didn't let that.
Okay.
Yeah, security didn't let that one slide.
Oh my god.
Man, he was that bold with it. He didn't care.
That's a good one. I like that one. What a douche.
Never saw that one before.
Oh my god. So I know the pandemic has really set back your 2020 goals, like you said, playing in tournaments and such, and shot taking at higher stakes live, which is much harder to do. So what are you trying to accomplish now during the pandemic, and what are you hoping to accomplish once coronavirus is over?
I think it was a good opportunity to study more. Like, you had more time on your hands with nothing else to do, so you could study. You could rewatch like old live streams. You could watch Live at the Bike live streams, which has some pretty good characters on it and some pretty wild lines that you can learn from. But besides that, I really wanted to. I took a lot of time to practice video editing. Like, it really is a skill. You have to try and improve with it, and that takes some time. But like, it kind of realigned my goals as I was able to like really pocket a bunch of paychecks because I wasn't able to like go out and do anything. So, you go to work, you come home, do nothing, do it again. And it really gave me a truly good bankroll to where, now I'm much more comfortable to go take shots or take tournaments or do other things because now I'm not just trying to hope I don't punt off 5 buy-ins and, just end it all.
Right.
But, yeah, so just the fact that it was able to help me bankroll build, maybe not through poker, but to a level where you're comfortable in playing more and you can do a more confident move. You could check raise bluff more than you could when you had a smaller bankroll, and you can do things. So, that part's pretty good, and still want to be one of the best vloggers. So we're working on that. We'll get there.
Keep working your way up, man.
Absolutely.
It's directly proportionate to how much work you put in. It really is. If you put a video out consistently of good quality, people respond. If you do it once a month, you didn't really put the effort into it. It is what it is.
Right.
100%. So our last question before we get into these hand histories are, if you had to compare your style to a well-known player, who would it be? And also, who's your favorite player to watch?
I would say that I'm very much like in the middle between Daniel Negreanu and Phil Hellmuth, like in the middle, because like I love playing suited connectors and sketchy looking hands and then cracking people. Yeah, wonderful. But I also do things that a lot of people say are ridiculous. Like Phil Hellmuth once like limped with kings with like 10 big blinds and then folded to an ace high board and was correct. And they're like, no, you should be out. Never, ever. Don't do it. But, he has the most bracelets. So can you really, criticize anything he's ever done? Yeah, I don't know. So I do things that are very much not GTO, not standard, not understood, and like that's just kind of why I compare it to that, because I'm very logical. I think of the person, I think of what's happening, I think of did this person just lose a big hand or win a big hand? Did they widen through that? How do they look? Do they look confident, or do they look like they're just begging for a fold? Like a lot of stuff like that. Like it's hard to vlog and explain live reads and physicalness of people, but there's just so much information out there that if you just pay attention, you can get a lot.
Right.
Makes sense.
I totally agree.
So also, who's your favorite player to watch, I guess, is the follow-up question to that.
Definitely love Daniel Negreanu. Like, so yeah, my hope for the grudge match is for him to pull out.
I want
maybe
T-Negs to pull out too.
Yeah, maybe an unexpected victory, but I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, as am I. So we got your hands here. Do you want to give a little background, if you happen to remember where you're at, or any table dynamics that we should know about?
Yeah.
Wait 1 second. There's an echo.
Bryce. I got it. It's gone.
Thank you. Go ahead.
For this hand, I was actually the cutoff had $400 total in front of him, so there's that. And the cutoff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, $400. This player was interesting because I actually he had recently bought it for $400 and got stacked, so I assume that he's gonna be playing a little bit wilder than normal. You know, when you're gonna buy in for a sizing that's not a full on top up in a cash game, you're usually willing to throw bullets around. You're not really just unstaked for the game. You're playing that buy-in size for a reason because you're willing to play it. So the fact he's on a second one, I think that makes something.
All right, fair enough. All right, so under the gun 4X is it. We've got a call from the low jack, cutoff folds. We decide to flat with the king 10 of hearts. Yeah, so what are you thinking here when the under the gun 4X is? Do you just not want to get out of line too much on your button, thinking they have a pretty strong range, or what are your feelings here?
I'm very confident in my ability to just play post flop. Like if he just checks to me on like a 7 high board, as I said, since I play those kinds of hands and he really doesn't, I should be the best hand always. But if it's like ace high and he just pots it, I can pretty easily fold. But just the position in itself has a lot of value, and it's a suited king. No one could fold that.
I mean, what are you 3-betting? What kings are you 3-betting? Would you be 3-betting king queen suited there, or even king jack suited, or what's your line?
I really don't 3-bet suited kings because I'm not really trying to win pre-flop. I'm trying to take it multiple streets, and I'm trying to pot control for those streets. Like if I'm gonna 3-bet now, I could never summon a bet large enough to get a fold on the turn. But when it's small like this, I could easily pot like on the turn and get a fold from an ace with no kicker that, maybe would have called a 3-bet, and then now they're committed. Now they still have a stack depth they're willing to get away from.
Fair enough. All right, so we've got an ace high board, and we've got the nut flush draw, and the under the gun player decides to check. Low jack bets roughly half pot. And we decide on just a flat. Did you consider raising here or not really? Obviously, he should have a lot of aces here, and we blocked the flush draw. So I think a flat totally makes sense. But did you consider raising at all, or what was your thought process?
Not really, because I block. Like he can't have king X of hearts, which would be a hand that I could get the fold with a raise. Like I have that. And additionally, like I said, I can take this down on the turn. If a 9 jack or queen comes, gaining me a gut shot, as well as, with my flush draw. So, the plan is really to just call this and hit a favorable high card on the turn and just really put some pressure on him if he checks to me.
Makes sense. Any thoughts, Ryan?
No, I tend to agree. I think you can raise this some percentage of the time. I don't think if you raise this, we would call it an unreasonable play at all. But I think one of the things that makes it not a great raising candidate is, like you said, it blocks a lot of the hands that we want to call, including hands like 10-9 that might be that would be incentivized to bet when they flop an open ender here.
Yeah, so I agree. I'm flatting the vast majority of the time. So the turn is a 4, and opponent decides to bet 80. So what are you thinking here at this brick? I mean, 5-6 gets there. That's not a complete brick.
Yeah, I never really expect him to have 5-6 ever.
Yeah.
And when he leads out into me and a pre-flop aggressor on an ace high board, I just always put him on an ace here and some form of ace. And because, like I said, he was a person that's buying it for 400, lost it. This is his second one very early. Like
he's calling if you make a play.
he's happy to get in with any ace.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thought process of, I can just call this 80 if I hit my heart. I don't really think he's ever getting away from it. And if I miss, I can just safely fold. It's not one of those spots where I think I have any fold equity where if I raise, he's going to fold. I think he's just going to get in with me.
Makes sense.
So I can just see what develops at this point.
Yeah. So a flat definitely seems like the best play here. And What the heck? Why does it say? Do we not have more hand history on this one?
Right. Well, right. This one doesn't have a river because the question was, did we have the right price to call on the turn? So what is the outcome on this hand? Because this we did not know.
Okay, so the river is the 7 of hearts, so a board pairing heart, and then he rips it on me.
Dang.
What do y'all think
based
about that?
based on the table dynamic, what you're saying, I think you just call.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he would rip basically any 7 based on your description of him, and unless we're putting him on ace-7, it doesn't sound like he has too many 7-8 suited. Is this something you think he'd play? Obviously, you play a lot of these type hands, but do you think he's playing a hand of that marginal holding?
I do think he has 7-8 or pocket 8s some of the time, like truly, but I didn't call to make my flush just to fold.
Yeah,
So
no, you're calling, especially.
It's not not the ideal card, but we're going with it. And he had ace jack, so and he thought that he should have bet more on the turn to get me off of it, and had some choice words to say.
Yeah, I like your line, and I totally think you have to call river, especially. I think him buying in for less, it sounds like he's willing to fire some bullets and get it in with not the nuts.
Yeah.
So I think this call is totally standard. I mean, while he has some hands that beat you, I think you're good here the majority of the time.
And it's such a small river shove. It's 265 into a pot that's already bigger than that. So it was like a 2/3 pot to shove. You can't lay down a flush there.
Even though it's board pairing, we're calling.
Right.
I mean, we don't love it. We don't have the absolute nutter voters, but what can you do? All right, so we got one more hand for you guys with Kyle. We have good old ace-7 suited. Let's see what develops. There's a straddle in this 2-5 game. And we decide to just flat. Is this a candidate in a straddled pot after a limp? You think that you can bump it up sometimes? Or do you? I know you talked about your post-flop play, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. But this specific table was in Bonita Springs, like the place where you're probably going to go someday, close to Naples. And it was a lot of elderly, like retired people who just, would play. If they missed, just check fold. Like that's just how it was. If they missed, they check folded. And I was happy to just play an ace. And for this size pot, I only have to bet like 15 on every flop and probably win. Like that's just that's how this table was running.
Sounds like printing money.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
But yeah, all right. So we got a Jack 10-7 flop. Not the best flop. We pair a 7. Got some backdoor potential.
This is the nut for this table.
When it checks to us, it sounds like we're gonna bet based on what you're saying. In position. So what do we decide to size to? Small bet. 10.
Yeah, because they were just folding. They were literally just folding. And like I said, this can set me up with like a lot of aggression on the turn. Like if I get called by Queen Jack and the turn is a king, well, they'll probably call that one. But any pair, I can just put a lot of pressure on. Even if like the 4 of hearts hits the turn, like a Jack Queen might think about it for this specific table. And if not, I have so many backdoor possibilities. I guess just hearts, but
it sounds like any over card's good for you.
Now.
Yeah,
that's
anything
that. Part. I mean, I would add here that if you were the raiser in this pot, I think that it also makes it a great candidate to bet on this flop because, like you said, any king, any queen, any heart are all good cards for you, and a 7 and an ace. There's a lot of good cards for you on the turn, and so that gives you a lot of multi-street barrel ability with this hand. And even in a limp pot, I mean, you're going to try to go multiple streets if you hit even those cards that we just named.
Makes sense. So we have a raise, little check raise to 30. So I'm assuming we're going to go ahead and just call. There's no sense in raising, and this hand would be boring if we folded. So
additionally, like it was one of those actions where he didn't even count like his chips. He just had like 6 red chips in his hand and just threw them forward. Like truly the dynamic of I've just bet every single hand. This kid doesn't have anything. I'm going to put him to the test this time. That's really what it felt like. He looked weak. He didn't look confident. And if he had a hand like 8-9 or Jack 10, would he raise that much? Like, would he want to give me the chance to force me out of the hand, or would he like want to do it later or smaller to keep me in? So this feels like at best like King Jack, something like that at best. But I'm never folding because of what we said, all the backdoors, and I don't believe this guy.
Let's
That's
see
a
a
really
turn.
interesting point, because I think his nutted range is far more likely just to flat this bet.
Yeah.
And his hands that need protection, like those weaker top pairs, are more incentivized to raise here. That's a really good observation.
Yeah, I agree. So we call because folding's boring, and the turn is an ace, giving us a good old 2-pair. Great card. I'm assuming the opponent, as he took the betting lead on the flop, is going to lead into us, and he does. Huge. He overpots it on the turn. So what do you make of this? Obviously, we hit a pretty damn good card. We're not folding though. So what do we think?
It was the same kind of motion, just this time that chips he had were green chips, and yeah, it's kind of interesting. He really looked so weak. Like he looked so weak. I can't even describe how weak he looked.
We love overpotting it and just looking weak.
He did. He looked like he was trying to get me out of the hand. He really did. King Queen gets there, but I didn't make 2-pair to fold. So we're gonna see if we can't bink a board pairing card or just hopefully hit a brick.
I'm very interested as to how he sizes. I'm assuming he's gonna size 275 to 375 here. Let's see what he does. Yeah, all right, 300. So pretty big bet. I don't think we're calling this turn on a brick river to fold.
All right.
So I'm assuming we're just putting the call here. And you have to call when you call this turn. You're calling this brick river.
What rivers are we folding on?
We're going with our read. I mean, I think we're folding to a queen or king if it's like
the
queen of spades, any queen, any king, and I mean, there's a ton of rivers we fold to, but this brick is not one of them. Yeah, sometimes. I mean, it sometimes less likely. I agree because
he barreled flop.
Well, my opponent had pocket threes.
Wow. Oh no.
So yeah, we have all that brickness, and guess it wasn't a brick.
Tyree's like, I love how you do math.
The fact he's doing that with threes, like, we have to call. If like a 4 rolls off, like, he's still betting this. Like, we know he is. So you're calling this. You're just calling this. I mean, it sucks he hit it this time, but it happens. Right. On to the next one.
And that was my thought process. Was he looked so weak on the flop and turn. Didn't really consider how he looked on the river. Honestly, didn't, because all I did was see that 3 and say, you don't look like you have it. You just don't. But he had to find it. He eventually did.
And he did. Yeah, but I mean, I like your line. I like the way you played it. Both hands. Yeah, not much feedback from me. Ryan, any closing thoughts?
No, I think your thought process are really interesting. We always bring on new people, and they have different ways of thinking about hands. And I like you said, you think about the game differently, and I think it serves you really well in these spots.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're definitely a good live player, and you like the live table dynamics. So keep crushing, man. We'll keep watching your videos. Hopefully get on a stream with you one day, meet up for drinks or something. But thank you so much for coming on.
All right. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Take care, Kyle.
Thank you.
All right, we have 2 more hands for you guys. Let me pull it up. Ryan, do you want to give us a little background on this third hand?
Yeah. So I've been grinding 50 cent $1 online. It's been a pretty brutal experience for the last month. But I think it's been a lot of fun. I think I learned a lot about how I play poker, and a lot has changed in the last month. Using the pokercoaching.com, they have these great 6-max cash game pre-flop charts. They're fabulous. They're really great. They really help you think about how you should form your ranges in different spots. And so this one's a really interesting hand. Let's see. The small blind is a maniac. This guy he's in for, I think, his third buy-in of the night for 150, and this is a fresh buy-in. I mean, he just punted it off with, I think he had just some mediocre pocket pair and barreled 3 streets into like ace king. It was bad.
Classic.
So he is not doing so hot so far. And we pick up ace queen in the cutoff, and we're going to make a standard open to $3.
Oh, Maniac raises us. I'm interested to see if we decide to put in the 4-bet here.
It's really weird, too, because he goes to 8.5, and there's a button call. So it's strange. Like, usually when you're 3-betting from the small blind, especially considering
size up. With another call behind you. Yeah, very weird.
I found this to be really strange, and I almost thought it was a misclick for a bit. But I was like, wait, no, it would have been a misclick to like 6. So this guy actually had to think about going to 8.5. So I don't know what's going on. It folds around to me. And just like you said, Bryce, I had this crazy thought in my head where I was like, hey, there's this button behind me where if I flat, this guy's getting literally the greatest price in the world to call with any possible hand he has. I have blockers for aces and queens. This is a good hand to play post-flop as well. If I flop an ace, I'm freaking going with it. So,
yeah, I mean, you can fold to a 5-bet too. I mean,
exactly. I think that's you can very confidently.
I like the 4-bet. And he just calls, and I think you should feel very good when he just calls.
Exactly.
So flops ace high, we're pretty happy. Maniac checks, and let's see how you size this. So there's a flush draw on board, 4-bet pot. What are we thinking?
So I go 17 here, and I think it's a mistake. I think the proper sizing, and tell me if I'm wrong here, is more like 20 to 25 in this spot. Because it's a 4-bet pot and because there's a flush draw on board, I think we want to bet closer to half pot than what I did.
Yeah.
Because I think the hands that he's calling with in the 4-bet, he has a lot of good aces. He should have all of his good aces there. And what aces am I really getting value of in that range? Like, I'm chopping with all of his ace queen, and I'm destroyed against ace king.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I definitely go bigger, but I think this also just circles back to the argument of how you have to play your hands in a similar-ish fashion. Like, while a bigger sizing makes sense for me, a bigger sizing might not necessarily make sense for you, especially if you aren't doing it, like, over long periods of time.
Right.
So I definitely would look to size probably a little bigger here, 22 to even like 24. But I wish you'd sized up a little, but like you're very known for like down betting flops.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think he's going to continue though with all of his 8s through jacks. So I think you can size up a little more here. And he's going to continue with any flush draw too. Yeah. So he's a maniac too. So considering that, I think you lost some value here, and I'm assuming he just puts in the call. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Puts in the check result.
So do you think this player is capable of raising a hand like ace-3 suited, or do we think we're more so putting him on the pocket 7s, ace-7, stuff of that nature? What do we think he's 3-betting small to?
And that was my one concern. Is I was really the most concerned about ace-7, ace-3 suited, and like pocket 7s. Wasn't really all that concerned about pocket 3s. But those were like the chief hands that I was really concerned about. Yeah. And then you have to think about like what else could he have? Like could he? I didn't really know what to put him on here.
Yeah, he doesn't have much behind, obviously. So this is effective calling off for our stack. So if you would you just decide to rip it in here, or are you gonna peel and call? You should rip it in here. Don't even answer that question. So, so what do you decide to do here? Do you decide to jam, or you decide to let this one go?
You'll be so happy I do. I decide to stick it in here.
Oh, of course you're. You better. This dude's a maniac. You can't hold that.
Right. And that's exactly kind of what it came down to for me, was that I had him tagged as this maniac. I had seen him do some crazy stuff during the session. So I think that, whereas if I was playing against Bryce, there is still a decent percentage of the time that ace queen's going to be good here. It's much higher against this tilted maniac with this crazy small 3-bet out of the small.
I think it's weird because I would never 3-bet this small, and when I 3-bet, I totally have the ace-3s. You know what I mean?
And you're not check raising on an ace-high flop. You're going to bail.
Yeah. All right. So he calls. He's got ace-jack, and we scoop. Easy money.
Easy money.
Yeah,
Easy
what
money.
The hell is he doing, bro?
I guess that was weird. I thought I was going to chop against ace queen, to be perfectly honest. When I put in the money, I was like,
small 3-bet just gives me a headache, man. I don't even know what to say.
Bigger.
Yeah, I'm glad you called. I think old Ryan might play a little scared, but
right. I'd be like, oh man, he just has it here. He just has it here all the time. I'm gonna fold.
Yeah, good call. I'm not folding that, buddy.
Right.
Not against the maniac. I'll fold it to you, but I don't think you raise that flop if you have good hands.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with it being so dry with only the one flush draw on board.
Even if you have like ace-7, ace-3 for protection, I know you call and raise turn.
Exactly.
I know that's what you do.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Because I have so much of the board locked up. I want to raise.
All right. So Ryan texted me how excited he was that he's playing a hand like 4-6 of diamonds, and then he told me he was just defending his big blind, and I didn't get nearly as excited. But let's see how this plays out. So the button raises to 4, and it comes back to us, and there's no way Nitty Ryan raises, so let's see the flat.
He is, as you can see by his thing underneath, this guy's a bit of a trash talker. There's been another person at the table who, as you can see, everyone's on like 300 stacks, and that was really how it was, where there was one fish who was just donating money pretty much, and everyone was just taking him for stacks. I think he's the hijack. And him and the guy who's the button had been just going at it in the chat in the most unpleasant of ways. So I was not particularly happy with the guy in the button. But I mean, this is a standard defend. I think he does go to 4, so I don't know. Maybe you could consider laying down a hand like 4-6 suited, but still.
Yeah. Pretty wet board. We already know what's going to happen. It's going to be check call. Let's see what he sauces to. Wow, all right. He bets the pot, and we decide to chase with our shit flush draw. Let's see what happens.
Okay, relax. So to defend myself, let's think about it here. If he bets full pot, we're getting 2-1 odds on a call, which means we only need 33% equity to continue. If I'm
do you think he ever has?
Shush. If I'm good on any diamond, that means I have 9 outs, and if I have 9 outs, I have 2 cards to come. That's 9 times 4, which gets us to 36, which 36% equity is more than 33. So therefore, I do have the right equity.
That's a big assumption, and I think the majority of the time you do have the only diamond flush draw heads up against him. But that's not always. That's an if, and obviously, if a diamond doesn't come on the turn, we're folding. So this is okay. Let's see what happens.
You do.
Okay. We're going to check because the trash talker is going to bet because he seems like a donk. And, he pots it again. What are we doing?
Yeah. I flat call him here. This is really interesting. So I put in the flat call. I don't know. I guess for some reason there is a situation where I could be beat, although it's quite rare that would happen. But I just think he's just, on rivers that are blanks, he's just going to continue to barrel off if he has anything good. Ace, queen, queen 10, sets, stuff like that. He's just going to keep going.
So is our plan call here and check raise river? Do you think that he's going to be betting decent
He's only got
holdings?
37.
Oh, so, okay, interesting. So are we just calling and jamming the river, or are we going to let him hang himself? What is the plan?
I did. What I actually did was I called and then I let him hang himself. Which I think in hindsight, I probably could have just stuck it in here anyway. And I do give him the opportunity to check back with a 1-pair ace-x hand. And so I think it is, I guess you could say it is kind of a mistake to check here. Just because he has so little back, he really shouldn't be folding any of those hands.
I actually think it looks a little bluffy if you just call the turn and jam the river. I mean, it's polarizing. Because you either have a damn good flush, or I think you could be representing a bricked flush draw where you just have a king or jack of diamonds in your hand that had a gutter on the flop and decided just to call the turn with perceived diamond outs. Not perceived. So we decide to check, and he hangs himself, and we're calling. I mean, we're not folding. And he's got, wow. If you jam that turn, he's snapping you off.
Right. Yeah, he's not getting away.
The money went in anyway.
Right.
I don't know. I think you played it fine. I don't know what I would do in this situation. I think it's very player dependent.
I think people in the comment section should let us know too as well.
I think it's so interesting his sizing on this flop with pocket fives. I mean, I guess just max pressure, but we could have a lot of hands that decide to continue here.
Right. Right, I totally agree. And then he just picks up the dream turn card, and he's not going to get away from it.
Yeah,
he went really
wow.
big on the turn too, which was
he pot,
and then he had nothing behind. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. I don't have too much to say on the hand. I mean, a little loosey goosey, but it worked out for us this time. It looks like you're on a good table. You need to stop losing money to these donks.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of been part of it too. Is I've been making better selections of tables where I see like crazy stuff going on. Like if I see an all in and I see two cards that should not be in an all in situation, right? You can be selected too online. Like, and if you're sitting at a crappy table, get up because you can. You just push one button and you're gone.
Yeah, some live casinos like don't let you table change if it's for no reason. Like if you say like this guy's being a complete asshole or something, they might let you leave. But some people just don't let you table change. Like I know MGM doesn't let you unless you have a valid reason. Whereas I know James Ross, who plays in Florida, like just table changes whenever it's a nitty table. I don't know if he says something, but it's definitely interesting. But yeah,
floor manager. These guys are folding like 90% of hands.
I'm so curious as to how he gets that.
Out of here.
This is an awesome episode. Very much appreciated having Kyle on. We will link his vlog in the description.
Absolutely.
Make sure to check out our merch. We're definitely gonna have some different updates to it. Our mask is a little. Do you want to bring out the mask?
Oh man.
It's not necessarily the best print job on the mask, but we will have another edition. We will fix it up. But the sweaters are dope.
Really
I don't know if I'm selling action yet for this weekend, but feel free to slide in the DMs and I'll consider if you give me a good offer. But thank you so much for tuning in. Do you have any closing thoughts, Ryan?
No, that's it for me, guys. We'll see you next week. Please be sure to like and subscribe. It's free, takes 2 seconds of your time, and it helps us with YouTube algorithms. So
absolutely. You guys have a good